Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really putting video distribution to the test. Look at the kind of heavy-duty commercial systems you'd find in places like, well, command centers, huge sports stadiums.
Yeah, anywhere reliability and scale are absolutely critical. Digital signage networks, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And our focus today is digging into the tech behind it all. Specifically, the WolfPack 160 by 160 HDMI Matrix Switchers.
Right. And our mission really is to unpack how these things work. How do you reliably manage and switch HD video between potentially 160 sources and 160 different displays?
Especially when those displays could be, what, 450 feet away?
Precisely. Pushing high bandwidth video that far.
Yeah.
Well, it's a serious technical challenge. It's not just flipping a switch.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, when we say 160 by 160, that means 160 inputs, any of which can be routed to any of 160 outputs, right?
That's the max scale, yeah. It provides the standardized yet incredibly flexible setup that commercial integrators really need for these complex jobs.
Okay, so let's tackle the elephant in the room first. Distance. We all know standard HDMI cables, they pretty much give up after 50 feet or so.
Yeah, that's the classic limitation. If you needed to go 450 feet traditionally, you were looking at expensive fiber optics or maybe active repeaters every 100 feet or so.
Which gets messy, adds failure points.
Yeah.
It's not ideal.
Not at all. And that's where these WolfPack Lite systems make a smart move. They sort of pivot away from dedicated video cables altogether.
And they use standard network wiring instead.
Exactly. They leverage the infrastructure that's already in most buildings. Ethernet cable,
Yeah.
CT6, CAT5E, even TT7. They use that to send full 1080p HDMI up to that 450-foot mark.
Okay, using common cable is a huge plus, saves cost right there. But how do they keep the signal looking good over that kind of distance? Just pushing HDMI over CT will usually results in, well, problems. Jitter, noise.
Right, you'd expect degradation. And that leads us to their secret sauce, basically. It's called LHDT.
LHDT, long HDMI distance technology.
That's the one. The documentation claims the picture quality looks like you are using a 3-foot HDMI cable. Now, they don't spell out exactly how LHDT works, but we can make some educated guesses.
Okay.
To get that kind of quality over 450 feet of copper, it can't just be boosting the signal. LHDT almost certainly involves some kind of smart low-latency compression.
Ah, so encoding and decoding?
Probably. Encoding robust error correction built into the chips. It essentially reconstructs the signal perfectly at the display end, almost instantly. That sophisticated processing is really what you're paying for.
Interesting. So you get the ease of using standard CT cables, but you rely on this proprietary LHDT to make it work reliably.
That's the trade-off. But if it delivers that 3-foot cable look for many installations, that simplified setup might be completely worth it.
And you mentioned flexibility with the cables.
Yeah, that's important too. They recommend CAT6 for new installs, which makes sense, better bandwidth. But critically, they say it works flawlessly even with older CP5E you might already have in the walls.
That's huge for retrofits. Being able to use existing wiring saves a ton of hassle and money.
Definitely a non-negotiable for many jobs.
Okay, so distance is covered. Let's talk about another major headache for installers. Power. Imagine 160 TVs mounted around a stadium. Each one needs a little receiver box.
Right, to convert the signal back from Ethernet to HDMI.
If every single one of those 160 boxes needs its own power adapter, its own wall plug. Wow. That's a cable management nightmare waiting to happen.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where the system brings in another really practical feature. PoE, Power over Ethernet.
PoE. So for anyone unfamiliar, that means the power for the receiver travels through the same Ethernet cable as the video signal.
That's exactly it. The system uses dedicated PoE HDMI receivers at each display.
Wow.
No separate power brick needed behind the TV.
Okay, the impact of that at scale, it's massive. You instantly eliminate 160 power outlets, 160 adapters.
Cleaner installs, less heat behind the displays, fewer things that can accidentally get unplugged or fail. And think about maintenance.
Good point. Troubleshooting a power issue.
If the receiver is powered by PoE, it's much simpler. You know the power is coming from the central switch. You don't have to diagnose a potentially failing adapter or a dodgy outlet hundreds of feet away. It just streamlines everything.
Yeah, I can see facility managers loving that simplification.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got distance and power sorted. Let's talk about building the actual switcher. It's not one giant box for 160 by 160, is it? It's modular.
Highly modular, yes.
Yeah.
That's key for customization. You basically have a chassis, and you populate it with 4 port cards.
4 ports per card.
Right. You slot in HDMI input cards on one side and RJ45 Ethernet output cards on the other, building up the configuration you need.
So you can scale it up incrementally all the way to the full 160 inputs and 160 outputs.
Exactly. And this modularity actually gives us a really interesting insight when you look at the pricing provided in the source material.
Ah, the pricing. Let's see. It says a base build your own starts around $600, but then look at these larger configurations.
Right. Get this. A 40 by 160, so 40 inputs going to 160 outputs is listed at $44,000. Then an 80 by 160 is $46,000.
So double the inputs for only $2,000 more.
Wait, it gets better. A 120 by 160 is $48,000.
Hold on. You go from 40 inputs to 120 inputs, that's tripling the inputs, and the price only goes up by $4,000 on a system that costs nearly 50 grand.
Exactly. The number of outputs, 160, stays the same. The main chassis, the control system, that's all the same.
So what does that tell us about where the cost is?
It tells you loud and clear that the vast majority of the system cost that $44,000 base for the 40 by 160 is tied up in the core switching fabric, the control software, the LHDT technology licensing, basically the engine that makes switching 160 outputs possible.
The individual input cards themselves must be relatively inexpensive in comparison.
Precisely. You're paying up front for the massive infrastructure capability. Adding more inputs later, once you have that core system, is actually pretty cost-effective.
That makes sense of the build-your-own option, too.
Yeah.
You can buy the full 160 output-capable frame now, but only populate it with, say, 40 input cards.
And know that you can easily scale up later without breaking the bank again. It's designed to grow with the project's needs. Whether you pick a preset size or call them for something totally custom, that modularity is central.
Okay. System built, powered up, scaled correctly. Now let's talk operation. Once it's all running, how does it actually perform? Is it fast? Responsive?
Performance is definitely a focus. For commercial use, especially live events, you can't have noticeable delays. The specs mention a very fast switching time.
How fast?
80 milliseconds. And latency is also cited as low, around 80 milliseconds too.
So less than 1/10 of a second for both switching and delay. That's pretty much instant to the human eye.
Yeah, when you switch sources, the change on screen should feel immediate. No awkward black screen or lag.
And these modular cards we talked about, they do more than just pass the signal through, right? There's processing built in.
Absolutely. This is another area where they integrate features that would normally mean buying extra boxes. For instance, free video wall processing is included on the cards.
Free video wall processing. So you don't need separate, expensive video wall controllers.
Correct. The card itself can handle splitting one source across multiple displays in a grid, managing all the geometry. That's a big cost and complexity saver.
What else?
Resolution scaling is also available on the cards. Think about having a mix of older 720p displays and newer 1080p screens in one system.
Ah, the scaler makes sure each display gets the right format without needing external converter boxes everywhere.
Exactly. Again, simplifies the install, fewer failure points. Plus, they mention the ability to handle separate audio on all cards.
Useful for zoning sound differently from video.
And even an option for a quad view card. So 4 sources on one screen output, lots of built-in flexibility.
Okay, so if you're the operator sitting there managing potentially hundreds of signals, how do you actually control this thing day to day?
They offer multiple control options, which you'd expect for a pro system. There are dedicated apps, a WB GUI, so graphical interface you access through a web browser.
Standard stuff for network gear.
Right. And also physical buttons on the front panel of the unit itself for quick local adjustments if you need them.
Makes sense. Now let's pull back a bit. Where does this tech fit in the bigger picture? Who's behind it?
The provider is HDTV Supply, Inc. The source notes, they've been around for 24 years, certified since way back in 2003, so they have a long history in the AV space.
Okay, longevity is good. Is there any mention of industry standards alignment?
Yes, and this is interesting. They're listed as an HDBaseT.org approved adopter of HD-based products.
HD-Base-T. Now, we've been talking about the proprietary LHDT for distance, but HD-Base-T, that's the big industry standard for sending video, audio, control, power, everything over a single CAT cable.
Right. That's the one. It's the open standard that really defines a lot of modern pro AV distribution.
So even though WolfPack Lite uses its own LHDT tech for its specific goals, the fact that the company is an approved HD-Base-T doctor suggests they're still engaged with and committed to broader industry standards and interoperability.
Exactly. It signals they understand and participate in the standard ecosystem, even while offering their specialized solution. It adds a layer of credibility.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What are the core takeaways for you, the listener, from this deep dive?
Well, I think it boils down to this. The WolfPack Lite 160 by 160 system is really engineered to tackle the logistical nightmares of large-scale video.
Right. It uses that proprietary LHDT to push high-quality 1080p video over huge distances, up to 450 feet using standard, affordable CK cable.
It dramatically simplifies installs by getting rid of potentially hundreds of power adapters using PoE instead.
And that modular card structure, especially revealed by the pricing, shows it's built for scalability. You invest in the core infrastructure, and then adding inputs is relatively efficient. It's future-proofing your setup.
It's all about maximizing efficiency and minimizing complexity when you're dealing with that kind of scale. And, here's a final thought to maybe mull over. The company uses these trademarked names, WolfPack and WolfPack. Think about what we've discussed, coordinating potentially hundreds of video streams, managing all the scaling, the power, ensuring everything works together seamlessly across this vast network. How does that WolfPack idea, that branding, maybe reflect the concept of a centralized, coordinated intelligence needed to manage all that complexity, like a pack working together? It's just something to think about, how the branding might mirror the system's